Okay, welcome everyone to the December 30th Emergency Board Meeting for Union County Public Schools. I would like to call this meeting to order, and we will begin with approval of the agenda.
I move that we approve the agenda.
Second.
Okay, all those in favor say aye.
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 All those opposed? Okay, we're good. Okay, first up, return to school update. I will turn it over to Dr. Houlihan.
Thank you, Madam Chair. It's great to see everyone this evening. I hope you're all having a wonderful holiday season so far. Thank you all for your flexibility and for being able to join us tonight. So in reflecting back on the first semester of this year, I do want to say how very proud I am of our entire school system. I feel like we've done a really good job of leading and managing school, although it's been very different. It's been outstanding. And reflecting back on the first semester, I just want to say how thankful I am for each of you, for your leadership, and for our entire team of educators and support staff. As we've said since August, one aspect of COVID-19 that we know exists within our school system is the ability to be flexible and adjust plans as needed. And as you all know, over the course of the last week and a half, our students and staff have been on a much needed winter break, including all of you, I hope. And so as a result of this, many of our normal COVID activities, such as reporting and data analysis that our lead nurses, our school nurses, our staff, those reports that we assess each day have not been readily available, and staff has not had the opportunity to analyze any of those reports. And in doing so, what that really does is help us contact families, contact students, contact employees that may have tested positive or that had been exposed possibly. So based on conversations with staff and with the health department, we've really come to the realization that given the time off from school this week and last, we probably need to take at least 1 week to review and analyze and assess all of our COVID-19 reports and data that may be impactful to students and employees before we can allow for in-person instruction. Now, next Monday is a teacher work day. We believe that that one day simply will not be enough time to comb through the data, to contact individual students and staff, and to make plans as needed. So tonight, I am recommending that Union County Public Schools move to Plan C for the week of January 4th and 8th. As a reminder, again, Monday is a teacher work day. Fridays are still being considered remote learning days. So for next week, what that really means is 3 days of in-person learning, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, would move to remote learning days. And I want the board, you all know this, I hope the public knows, I certainly value and recognize the importance of in-person learning. But I do feel that this is a necessary, proactive move that will better position the school system, give us the time we need to make sure that when students and staff return to school, we're confident that we've identified and handled any positive cases that may potentially be impactful. So with this recommendation comes the following adjustments to the schedule for next week. All students and staff will engage in remote teaching and learning and work for the period of January 4th through 8th. No staff except for identified categories of employees, such as administrators and custodians, will be allowed into the buildings at all during next week. The same applies to all central services locations. Child nutrition will expand their remote feeding sites during the week. We'll have more information about those sites distributed in the coming days. All UCPS athletics will continue during after-school hours, and all in-person learning for those families who have opted into Plan A or B will resume on January 11th with no changes to Plan A for elementary schools and Plan B for middle and high schools. In closing, I again want to say I have been and will continue to be a strong advocate for in-person learning. I feel like we've really done a great job of leading the state since August 17th as the largest district offering in-person learning as an option for families. And we're going to continue to do so as long as we feel that we are prepared for such. But given the factors at hand that I mentioned, we simply need the time to review the data, contact individual students, families, and employees, and make sure we're good to go for in-person learning to return. Staff who are on this meeting tonight, or I am happy to take any questions. And with that, I'll turn it back over to you, Ms. Merrill. Thank you.
So I would like to kick it off. Thank you, Dr.
I have a
Houlihan. I would
question,
like
too.
to kick it off to let the board know that we have been in constant communication with Jared McCraw, who has been in constant communication with the county and the health department for the last 2 weeks. And I would just like to share with the board that two huge factors have come into play since school went out on winter break. One, the county shifted their staff from reporting and monitoring, the employees that might be showing up on their list every day, or students that are showing up on their list every day. They had to. I don't know who's got their microphone on, but I think maybe Gary, if you could mute your mic for a minute. I'm getting a lot of a bounce back. Thank you so much. So what I was trying to say is that over the last 2 weeks in getting those reports from Mr. McCraw and the county and the health department, there have been two factors that have led to needing to call this emergency meeting and informing all board members in this to help with this decision. And Dr. Houlihan's recommendation is that the county had to shift all of their staff the last 2 weeks away from working so closely with us when school was still in session to vaccinations. So they've had to shift their staff to vaccinations. So there's a little bit of lag in reporting positive cases to us so that we can pull out employee names and student names for Union County Public Schools. So if that's not being done, then they are not being contacted. There's contact tracing is also delayed, and identifying exposures to those positive cases is also a little bit delayed. The second thing, the second reason for this meeting that is bringing us to this conversation is the fact that test results have also been delayed. Before we got out on Christmas break, or a month or two ago, test results were coming in much faster, and test results are coming in much slower. It's taking about 5 days now for someone to find out if they are positive. So with those two reasons, that was the information that Mr. McCraw had to pass along to Kathy and I and Dr. Houlihan to bring this information to you tonight. So that I just wanted you to be aware of the reports Kathy and I had been getting the last 2 weeks.
Yeah, and I would like to add too that Monday won't be a remote learning day because it's a teacher work day, correct, Dr. Houlihan?
That is correct. But even so, we would want teachers and staff to stay home that day and work from home.
Yes, of course. Yep. So we would have had 3 in-person school days next week if we were going to school, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. So, and what's actually happening is we're taking 3 of those days and moving them to remote learning day, because Fridays are always remote learning day and Monday was not a scheduled day for students to come into the building. So it's 3 days that we're going to remote learning in the end.
That is correct.
And what I would like to add on to that 3 days is, if we were to come back in person on January 5th, not having current information from the county or current test results because there's a delay, if we were to come back on the 5th, that could potentially be shutting the district down or schools down or classrooms down, not 3 days, but 14 days. So I think that's kind of a good trade-off, that we would rather take 3 days and allow our nurses to catch up with the county and catch up with positive results coming in and pull all of our employees and students out. I think
Agreed.
it's wiser for us to take these 3 days and move to remote learning as opposed to risking having to shut down for 14 days by letting, potential positives and exposures into the schools.
Agreed. The
It
other,
almost,
I
it
have a
almost,
okay, go ahead. You first, Jimmy.
It almost-
then I'll go.
thank you. It almost appears, and again, not talking the 2 weeks like so many of the other districts, I'm happy about that. But we have today is Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and with that Monday, that's a teacher work day. What data can't be accumulated before then? I mean, if in fact this is a data gathering situation, and if in fact we're coming together today, predicated on the point that the health department has acknowledged their lags and are they yet in a lag, Jared? Are they yet behind in their reporting? What is it that we won't be able to find out over these next 3 days that we would need an additional 3 days to find out is my question. And again, I'm asking this from the standpoint is as if the conversation that I'm hearing from Dr. Houlihan, the chair and the vice chair, is if that the counting will start next week trying to figure out what's going on. Vice, why are we not finding out right now?
Reverend Benson, the county is sending the data that they get, but because of the holidays that are mixed in, Friday will be a holiday, then we have the weekend. The expected number of positive cases and exposures that will come in on the 4th, we need those additional days to assess that data that will come in.
Our nurses are not in the building right now to go through any data, Jimmy. So our nurses are saying that Monday would not be enough time for them to go through 2 weeks of data to be ready on Tuesday the 5th.
No, but this data is coming from the health department, not the nurses. So the health department, is my understanding, has been in direct conversation with Jared. So Jared, are you not getting this information directly, or is it going to the nurses and then the nurses are giving it to you?
Yeah, Reverend Benson, our nurse supervisors get this information and they distribute it to the nurses at every school. Our nurses in the schools are out of the office, so they will return on January 4th. Once they start going through all the data that has accumulated over the 2 weeks, it's going to take more than the 1 day to go through that data. We have done a good job of being proactive and keeping positive cases and known exposures out of our buildings. We just don't want that to happen by not being thorough with our practice on January 4th. We need those 3 days to go through that data.
Okay, so it's not the health department so much as it is us being on vacation and the nurses being on vacation, and they need to have their time to rest.
It's
and
my
recuperate.
understanding it's a combination
I
of
wasn't
both.
finished yet, Madam Chair.
It's a combination of both.
I wasn't finished yet.
They shifted. They shifted
I
their.
wasn't finished yet, Madam Chair. When I finish, you can resume speaking. Allow me to finish speaking. So that
There
seems
is
to
a
be the
delay
issue,
on your
Jared.
phone, so I apologize. You every now and then you lag, so I apologize.
Okay, that's probably this California thing. So I'm sorry, Madam Chair. I apologize myself. Jared, is that the situation we're facing?
Reverend Benson, it's a combination of both. The health department has shifted their focus to vaccinations, which is a good thing. We're all happy about the vaccinations coming in. But our nurses being out of the building and not in the office is one factor. The health department will resume their normal distribution of their list later this week and at the first of next week, but it is a combination of both.
Okay, with that, I have a better understanding of your request, Dr. Houlihan. Thank you.
Todd?
Dr. Houlihan, can you repeat what you said about sports during this time?
That's what's my question too. Thank you.
Or
Yeah,
not
just-
necessarily just sports, but any after-school activities?
So based on the success that we have had during the first semester, it is our recommendation that all athletics and extracurricular activities after school continue. We will continue to have our screening processes in place. I've consulted with Mr. Strickland, Mr. McGraw, and Nelson Garner on that recommendation. And based on kind of where we are, they support that.
So you're saying we're going to have sports, but they're not going to enter our buildings?
Well, we have some winter sports are starting that are going to be outdoors as well. But we also have other kinds of programming that will happen in the building, like volleyball and basketball. But again, all of the requirements under the guidelines from a health and safety standpoint that have been followed will continue to be followed. If we have any issues with that, then we can certainly shut that down by school. But that is the recommendation.
And some of those workouts continued over the break too, correct? For volleyball and basketball, I'm pretty sure that those continued during the break as well.
That
And
is
they
correct.
work, right, and they do work in the things. And then Todd, you can go ask, and I have another question.
I guess this question would be more for Shauna. Have we looked at anything? How are we going to pay, say, our cafeteria staff, bus drivers, substitute
my question.
teachers? I mean, who's getting paid? Who's not getting paid? Where's this coming from?
That was my question too.
So the only way we can do this is to use local dollars like we did previously with the bus drivers. So your bus drivers after school, your bus monitors, those hourly staff that do not have the ability to have a remote work option would, if you all chose to, could be paid for those 3 days. The child nutrition program, they'll do as they've done all along, where they can do remote feeding sites and they can still continue to work and meet their hours.
The custodians will be working the whole time, Mr.
Yes.
Strickland? Yes, okay. So in the building will be custodians and admin, and that's it, and the nurses, and that's it?
That is it.
Okay, and
And the
then
sport.
in the high schools, athletics will be happening for basketball and volleyball, correct?
That is
Okay.
correct.
Okay.
I have a question or two.
Okay, Gary?
And Jared or Dr. Houlihan, the spreadsheet you sent out today of the COVID positive cases, approximately how old is that data? I assume it's before the break.
The data on the spreadsheet you have is what is posted on the website. The last date on that was December the 21st, Mr. Sides. So at that point, the nurses started their much deserved and well-needed break. But December 21st is when that data is up to.
So let me make sure I have this right. We are not asking for these 3 days or 3 days of virtual due to the COVID infection rate in Union County. It is have the opportunity to ramp back up our health and safety processes due to the Christmas break, including gathering data. Is that a fair statement?
That's a fair statement. Yes, sir.
All right. So there is no recommendation on part of staff to continue because of the situation in the county or the state beyond the 3 days, notwithstanding what happens tomorrow or the next day, or up to the 4th. But there is no anticipated recommendation to go any further than those 3 days.
That is correct. Not at the current time. This is to really kind of level set and make sure that we have a solid foundation to move forward for the rest of the second semester.
Well, I think we need to stress that because all of our, well, potentially a lot, if not all of our elementary age students' parents have less than a week to scramble and make accommodations. So we need to let everybody
We're
know.
already out on Monday and Friday, but I understand the Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. Yes, Kathy?
I would like to, go, okay, go ahead, Gary, and then I'll go after you, no problem.
I watched part of the governor's press conference, COVID update conference, whatever you want to call that show. And he is listing educators as high priority. Have we received any essential workers, excuse me. Have we received any feedback either from the state, DPI, or the county? Any anticipated time frame if anyone is so inclined in UCPS to seek out the vaccine that might be available?
I'll let Mr. McCraw answer that.
Thank you, Dr. Houlihan. Mr. Sides, we've been working with the Department of Public Health here in Union County. Our nurses will begin getting vaccines January 7th, 8th, and 9th. So that will be Group 1A for our county. We've also begun talking to them about Group 1B, which will be all other UCPS employees. The time frame for the vaccinations has not been set. As you know, that's a large group of people. So the distribution of the vaccine to all other UCPS employees will occur. We just don't know the time frame yet.
Okay.
I assume you'll be coming back to us with the procedures, who's prioritized, however we decide to roll with it. But this will not be a mandatory condition of continued employment at UCPS to be vaccinated, correct?
Correct.
That will not be mandatory.
I know that it's been a choice for our nurses, and then it's not been a requirement from the health department that anyone take the vaccine. It is offered to our nurses, and it will be offered to our employees.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay.
Kathy?
I have a follow-on question for athletics. What about middle school athletics? My understanding is they have basketball starting this week or the following week, and they had practices scheduled. Does anyone know if we're going to move forward with that? I assume we are.
In cheer.
So the middle schools are following the same protocols that the high schools are following, and we have been very successful with that, and will continue to do that.
Okay. And I want to piggyback on Mr. Sides' conversation about we're not shutting down school because of metrics or anything. I don't know if anybody saw the other day, but Dr. Fauci was on CNN a couple days ago, and they asked him about his advice to schools. And one of the things that he said is that we should try as best as we can to get children back in school and keep them in school. And it's a safe place for them to be, and the best it's best as possible to keep kids in schools. So I would tell everybody they should go look at that interview with Dr. Fauci, because he had some good things to say about schools and kids and teachers being in schools.
I would also like to say that when Jared met with the county and the Department of Health, Jared, correct me if I'm wrong, but they approved or supported this decision, correct?
Yes, ma'am. They support this decision as a proactive measure for the week when we return. They support this decision.
And again, I would just like to say I'd rather trade off 3 days of remote learning than letting potential positives in without us knowing yet and making those phone calls and contact tracing and identifying exposures. I'd rather have 3 days of remote learning than have to shut everything down for 14 days because of COVID coming into the building. But I just wanted to confirm that you did speak to the county about this recommendation from Dr. Houlihan, and they supported the recommendation.
Yes, ma'am. They support the recommendation for the 1 week. They feel it's a proactive measure. Thank you.
Are you ready for a motion on this, or does anyone have any more questions? If not, I will move that that for next week we go to remote learning on Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. Friday will be remote learning. Monday will still be a teacher work day. But everybody will, all the staff will work from home except for administrators and custodians and the school nutrition, which thank you to all of them for doing that. And we will go back to school with in-school days on Monday, January 11th.
I'll second that.
I would
Okay,
like,
are there any comments or questions?
I would like to offer an amendment.
Okay,
I'm concerned if we feel it necessary to go virtual for our students, that we should have the same concern for our student athletes being on the campus. And I would like to offer an amendment for those 3 days or the whole week if decided, that all sports activities be suspended as well.
I will not accept that friendly amendment.
Nor would I. Not in the least.
I guess my comment is they can't be, I mean, we feel it's best to catch up with the data. And so our students are going to be remote, but sports are going to be exempt. I have a hard time reconciling that. But
Sports have been going on all during the break already, and they have their own pods and their own protocols. And I think Mark is in better position to answer this, but that's my understanding.
we have not had a lag or a delay in reporting from our student athletes or our coaches. I think our concern with Tuesday, Wednesday, or Thursday is that we may not have all the information from the county for our nurses to catch up with their shift to vaccinations, and our nurses coming back into the building and having enough time to make those phone calls and identify exposures. We have not had that concern with our student athletes and our coaches. So we have a motion and a second. Are there any other comments? If not, I would like everyone to unmute their mic. And if you are in favor of this motion, say aye and raise your hand. Aye.
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 All those opposed?
no.
So I believe that is 7-1 with Mr. Sides opposing, and the motion passes.
And so, Dr. Houlihan, you're going to be getting out information to our staff and to our parents regarding this.
Yeah, so this evening we'll be communicating via email and Blackboard Connect to all families, parents, and all of our employees with an update from this meeting so that everyone is in the loop.
And I think one thing was not mentioned. If any teachers do need something out of their rooms for the week, again, we are not allowing anyone into the buildings except administrators and nurses and custodians. So if anyone needs something out of the building, the request would be to get in touch with your supervisor, and schools will arrange for curbside pickup because we will not be letting anyone into the classrooms.
And I want to reiterate, yes, you are correct, Ms. Merrill, that guidance will be given to principals this evening or tomorrow. And I do want to reiterate, and will reiterate to our cabinet staff that the same metric applies to, same recommendation applies to all central services, office locations, and buildings.
And to be clear, our students are going to be getting an education this week. They will be in school with remote learning from their teachers Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. I want to be clear. Our students are still being educated next week.
School is back in session and attendance will be taken. Correct?
That is correct. We will be in school.
Okay.
Can I ask a question?
Yes.
About the hourly employees, the bus drivers, is that decided and that's going to happen as far as them getting paid?
I will accept a motion.
I thought
Okay.
that Mrs. McLam had indicated that they were going to get paid.
I didn't know if we
If
had
you
to.
all choose, if that's something, if you all, your direction, it will have to come from local dollars. If you
Oh,
do.
okay. I didn't understand it. I thought that you were indicating that we were going to pay that. Okay, so Sarah, do you want to make a motion and we'll second it?
Yes, I'd like to make a motion that the hourly employees, bus drivers, the bus driver aides, I mean, whoever falls under that umbrella because they don't have work that they can do, get paid during the Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday of
I'll
next week.
second. Ms. McLam, I have a question for you. Do you have an approximate amount that this of money this would entail, and do we have the sources in order to do it?
Yeah, it's for the 3 days for the categories that we're looking at is probably somewhere around $155,000 for those 3 days. So we do have the funding to cover that in local, but it's going to, you know, as we continue on, we just need to be mindful of that. But yes, we do have the funds that can cover that.
So I understand this correctly. We were going to be paying them anyways, as this was going to be a day. So there is no shift now that we're not going to be in school.
There's a shift.
Go elsewhere, right?
I can't use state funds to pay them. And we pay them from the majority of the employees we're talking about are paid from state dollars. So I do have to, I mean, the only way we can do this is to pay them from local, because I can't use state money to pay them when they're not working. So there will be some shift. And that's why I say we have to be mindful at some point. We're not going to have, you know, we've got to look at the expenditures that we're spending out of state dollars of state transportation funds. Now we can use those state transportation dollars to pay bus drivers to be custodians and do other tasks. And I can use those funds in that way. But if we don't have anything else for them to do, I have to use local dollars.
Well, under these circumstances, with the buildings being closed and limited staff, I assume we would not want to be asking them to come in to do those custodial staffs, right? We would still want to limit the amount of people in the building.
That is correct. I would not, that is not part of my recommendation in this, Mr. Morio.
Okay.
And Shauna, I just want to confirm that there is CARES Act funding available that we will be able to use this semester.
You can't use any federal or state dollars to pay any staff members that are not currently working. So it has to be local.
She means that there's federal COVID dollars to replace the local money that we're using to pay the.
That was the conversation you and Dr.
Yes.
Houlihan had with us before
Yes.
the meeting.
Yes. I'm sorry, I misunderstood your question. So yes, there are other ways we can shift dollars. There will be shifting that has to happen.
Okay, I just want to remind everyone of the conversations we had before this meeting where we were assured that there was a way to take care of this.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for that clarification. So we have a motion from Mrs. May. Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, are there any other questions? If everyone will unmute their mic. All those in favor of the motion say aye and raise your hand.
Aye.
All those opposed? Okay, so the motion passes 8-0 for our hourly employees to get paid for those 3 days. Okay, thank you very much. That should conclude our return to school update and bring us to the January board meeting. So board, currently we were scheduled to have our board meeting on Thursday, January 7th. And this is going to be during the time when our schools and central offices and including the PDC will be closed. And so I wanted to recommend to the board and see if you would be favorable to moving our January board meeting to the following Tuesday, January 12th at 7 p.m. at the PDC when everything has reopened.
Have you, may I ask, have there already been, how big of an agenda do you anticipate for the January meeting?
I have not received a draft from Dr. Houlihan's office.
We're still working on it, but based on the information that I saw a week and a half ago, I do not expect it to be a very heavy meeting.
And time sensitive.
I don't know about that. I'd have to go back and look. I don't think there's anything on the agenda that
would, be time sensitive from Thursday to Tuesday.
That is
I believe
correct.
we did have a facilities meeting, so we will have some items from facilities.
Could I ask why we're proposing to postpone it rather than go virtual like our students on Thursday? I mean, if there's some items you feel like need to be addressed.
I think the idea was that because all the buildings are closed, that we wouldn't make anybody go in to do anything with respect to the meeting. And this way we could have an in-person meeting on the 12th.
If our students and staff are going to be in person come the 11th, we would like to be in person as well.
Makes sense.
I make a motion, we move the board meeting to the next Tuesday. What's the date?
January 12th at
January
7 p.m. And I believe Mr. Price has a question.
No, I was going to second Gary's motion.
Okay.
Sorry.
Are there any other questions or concerns about moving our in-person meeting to Tuesday, January 12th at the PDC at 7 p.m.? And we will follow up board and let you know what time closed session will start, okay? Okay,
Thank you.
so with a motion and a second, all those in favor say aye and raise your hand.
Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? So the motion passes 8-0. Okay. Okay, so that concludes the agenda items. Are there any other comments or questions or concerns from the board while we have staff online?
Yes, Madam Chair. One thing, and that is this. Dr. Houlihan, as much as lieth within you with the data that you have before you, as we move forward, if we can maybe come to this type of conclusion a little earlier, that way we give parents time to adjust their schedules, a little bit better. I know we're run by data, and sometimes the data gets there late, but as much as lieth within you and your team, who do a fantastic job, by the way, to come to this conclusion a little earlier, giving the parents an opportunity to set up childcare, daycare, babysitters, and whatnot. If that's feasible, I greatly appreciate that.
Yes, sir. Duly noted. Thank you.
I appreciate your comments, Mr. Benchin, but I also want everyone to know here on the board and watching at home that Mr. McCraw just had his meeting with the county yesterday, Tuesday. So that was when the county gave us the feedback, and that's when I called the emergency meeting for today.
I understood, but Dr. Houlihan grasped what I was sharing in the fact that as soon as we can, and if this is as soon as we can, then this was as soon as we can. But if we,
well, as soon as we can was the meeting with the county, the health department, and staff yesterday, and that was the feedback we received. And as soon as we got that from the health department and the county, Dr. Houlihan and Mr. McGraw and I agreed to call an emergency meeting to bring the rest of the board up to speed from yesterday's meeting.
I got it. I understood. I'm just saying that in the future, if we can get it even quicker than that, if we have the foresight, not necessarily waiting on an entity to come to us, but if we ourselves, the team, Jared, Dr. Houlihan, his staff, has the foresight that these things might be happening. And I think he understood what I was saying.
All of our
Lastly,
decisions are made based on the health department, and they gave us their feedback yesterday. So thank you, Mr. McGraw, for working so diligently through the holidays.
I think there were a lot of people that were concerned, especially when emergency meetings called. And then you have the governor doing a special COVID news conference the same day. Among myself, I was concerned they were going to close us down. And I know there were a lot of people that were concerned that UCPS was going to make that decision on our own to close down. And I hope everyone understands the reasoning behind this, because there are a lot of moving parts right now with the vaccine coming out, the holidays. We got to make sure we got all the pieces in place to keep everybody safe. So I hope we've been able to put, I'm sure there'll be some folks that will have some angst about even the 3 days. I certainly understand that. But we're trying to do
We're trying to take 3 days as opposed to shutting down for 14 days.
Right. And from Mr. McGraw's latest report, I am glad to report that there are currently zero, as of the date of this report, there are 0 hospitalizations of either UCPS employees or students. And of a employee base of some close to 5,000 and student base of some, what are we now, 38, 37, not considering D, we have 114 active cases. So that goes to show that Dr. Houlihan and staff and your board is being very diligent in making sure this thing doesn't get out of hand. So I hope one day soon this will all be behind us. We go back to our 5 days a week, regular sports, everybody back to the good life. But we are, I certainly understand staff's conservative approach to starting off the new year.
And needing to get our nurses back in the building and giving them a chance to get caught up, in addition to receiving their own vaccinations that same week. So our nurses are valuable. We need them, well rested and informed and ready to do their job when they show up, and not be stressed that positive cases are coming into the building that haven't been contacted or notified. And Mr. Sides, you bring up a really good point that I think everyone needs to be reminded that, we do have our 30 elementary schools in person 4 days a week, with Fridays remote. And as much as we would love to have our middle school and high school attend, 4 to 5 days a week, the only reason our board is not able to make that decision today is because of state guidelines that prevent us from moving our middle schools and high schools to more days in person. So I just want to remind everyone that that the state allows us to do that for our elementary students, but the state does not allow us to do that for middle school and high school yet. But as soon as the governor comes out with that announcement, I'm sure we will call another meeting. Does anyone else have any closing comments?
Let's motion to adjourn.
second.
All those in favor say aye.
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 Thank you so much for meeting in such short notice. Have a good evening.
Goodbye.
Thank you all.